even with a effectively functioning skill tree now, we can unlock skills, we have everything visual, it costs stuff to unlock skills, that's all good. But if I add in one thing, everything will break apart. So let's add in the thing that will ruin your life. We're going to add a button to our skill tree menu, and I'm going to put that right here. Let's anchor that to the bottom left as well, and I put in a text there because a button is kind of worthless if you don't know what it's going to do, and we'll call this quit. It's just going to remove this thing from the viewport, and you can kind of see where this is going, I'm sure. But if we just click on button 0 at a click event, what's that going to do? Well, what that's going to do is it's going to get the player controller and give back input to it. So set input mode to game only. It's going to show mouse cursor back to false. And then it's going to remove this widget itself from the viewport. So we just remove from parent. What happens when we do that? Well, we obviously get back our control. That's good. But let's unlock a couple of skills. Let's unlock these two, and then, oh, actually, we're going to do some gameplay, fight some monsters, we have some more experience, all that good. Okay, let's open up the skill tree again. Oh, it's back to default. Because obviously, if we remove the skill tree and then add it back in, it's going to add an entirely new blank instance of it. So every time we add this to the viewport, we need to be able to get the data of everything being unlocked or not unlocked from somewhere else. And since we need to put all that into this save file for our game as well, the best way to do this is to just put this into a save object, and then the save object can just be saved and loaded whenever we like. So let's take a look at that. All things considered, it's fairly easy to set that up, to just program this on top of what we already have. So if we go into the skill tree node itself, all we need to do is add an ID to this. Then what we can do is we can save the IDs of everything that has been unlocked. And then whenever we spawn in one of these nodes, we just check, hey, is this in a list of unlocked IDs? If so, we just forcefully unlock it by effectively just running this unlock skill, minus the unlocking it to the player and applying the cost, of course. So we just do this part of it. So how does the ID system work? Well, we'll make a node ID variable, and that'll be of type GUID. This is a global unique identifier, and every node is going to have its own global unique identifier. So after we've made that, compiled it, saved it, we need to go into the skill tree itself. And this is something that you do need to be mindful of. Every single one of these now has a node ID. You can just click on it, generate a new one, and Unreal automatically generates you an ID that hasn't been used anywhere else in your project yet. There's a very large pool of IDs to use. So don't worry about this running out of IDs that you can use, because there's no way that you're going to have enough objects in your skill tree, but even in your entire game, to fill out every ID that is possible with the GUID system. So you can pretty much use this as much and everywhere that you want to. So every single one of these is going to need to have a GUID. For normal actors, when you use this, generally what you do is you put a GUID check, whether or not it's valid or not, in its construction script. And if it is not a valid GUID, you make it auto-generate just a new one. You can't do that in widgets, because anything that you run on its pre-constructs doesn't actually get applied properly. Just a quirk of how the widget system works, you do need to manually do this. The reason that you need to be mindful of this is if you're in the same habit that I am, and that is instead of pulling in new widgets from your palette and just clicking on one of these and copying it over, it's going to have the same GUID. So if you do that, you do need to generate a new one. And now that we have a new one anyway, we might as well, I guess, link this one up to that one. And again, compile this, we can see it immediately draws a line. How nice. So everything now has a GUID, a unique way to identify each given node. Now we just need to be able to keep track of which nodes have been saved and which ones haven't been. So for that, I'm going to make a new blueprint class here, and that will be a save game object. call that BP skill tree save. You might, and you likely even, would actually want to implement this within the normal save game object that your game has. You probably only have one save game object for your entire game. And that's going to have just one variable in our case, and that's going to be the unlocked skill tree nodes. And that's just going to keep track of the GUIDs that have been unlocked. Of course, there's going to be an array, because it's going to be more than one. And what we do with this is we just keep a instance of this save object just kind of live around on one of our other objects, so that we can easily read and write to it without needing to actually commit it to being saved or loaded as like a save slot. If you want more information about that, I actually made a video about this entire concept, the difference between in-memory objects and on-disk objects, which I will try to remember to leave a link to in the pinned comment, maybe in the card aisle, wherever. If there's nothing that you can find, scream at me in the comments and I will link you to it. But the basic idea being is that in some sort of pretty persistent object, usually you would do that in the game instance. I'm not going to bother setting up an entire game instance for this, as well as the fact that the version of Unreal that I'm on has some issues opening in the project settings, so I can't even change the game instance, which is a little annoying. So we're just going to do this in the third-person character itself. Just usually, again, you do this in the game instance. So we just add in a begin play. In the game instance, it's what we call init. And there we just create save game object. And that save game object will be of type skill tree save. And we just keep that as our skill tree save object. Now I'm going to add a couple of debug keys. Debug key for L is going to be for loading our save from disk into this object. And then debug key B, I'd ideally do S, but that's already part of WASD, just because it's close to L, is going to be saving whatever is in this to a save slot on disk. So we get our save object here, and then L will be load. So we load save game from slots. What you probably want to do actually is does save game exist? And there we just, for now, we're going to give in a hard-coded variable name, which we'll just call skill tree. So we first check if skill tree already exists, because if it doesn't exist yet, we don't want to load it. Only if this actually exists on disk do we want to load it. And after we've loaded it, we cast it to the skill tree save, because loading a game from slot always gives you a generic save game object reference. And you can't hook that up to this specific one, so you need to cast it first. And then we will have loaded in our save file. So we get from disk, put it into the live object in memory, and all the code that we're going to be writing to check whether or not things have been unlocked or not are just going to be looking at this object reference. So that's the way that these more flexible save systems tend to work. Other way around, P is going to be saving this stuff, and this is going to be much easier because we can just save game to slots. The save game object is going to be our skill tree object save, and we just need to give in the same name, which is our skill tree. This is the saving and the loading part of it, and setting up the actual object. So once again, this usually exists in the game instance, not on your player character. With that little bit of setup, we can go back into the skill node widget, and this is going to look at that data that we just set up and decide whether or not it is pre-unlocked or not. So in event constructs, what I'll do is I'll actually put in a sequence node, because I want to set the node state visual after everything else that's going to be happening here. We get the player pawn. Again, usually you'd probably be getting the game instance here and casting that to your own game instance class, which is going to be, in our case, we're going to be casting it to the player character class. And there we get our save game objects. From there, we just get our unlocked skill trees and we check, hey, does this array contain the ID for this specific node? Because based on that, we can know, was this previously unlocked or not? Put that into a branch, and if that is the case, we just set this to being both opened and unlocked. Just hard-coded set those to being true. And then we bring that into another branch where we just check if it's unlocked. Both of these paths are going to be joining back together through this node. Now, if we've gone through this part, this will always be unlocked true, of course. If we've gone through this path, it still might end up being true if we like default unlock something or whatever. So that's the reason that we're checking something that we've literally just set. It's kind of just to recombine the execution flow into a single path. But if this has indeed been unlocked, we want to open its children. Now, it's going to do this for every node. So everything that is already opened and unlocked is going to get itself set to being opened multiple times, but that's not really an issue. But this way, we have a persistent way to keep track of which ones have been unlocked. And then all we need to do is whenever we unlock our skill, we need to also get our player pawn or instance and cast it, get our save tree object and the array inside of it and all that kind of good stuff. And what we need to do is in our unlock skill, just at the very end, also add to this. But we want to add unique so that we don't add the same GUID multiple times. Doesn't really break any part of the code, but it's just kind of worthless to have the same ID multiple times in the list. Not that big of a value to store multiple times, but you'd rather just not, right? So we added unique, the node ID for this node. So that way it gets added to this array on this object. And now we have a persistent object that's going to be keeping track of which ones have been unlocked and which ones have not been unlocked in the skill tree. And just as easily as that, we can open this up, unlock a couple of things, close it down, open it back up, and you can see everything persists. Now, I can even press the B key to save it, close out of the game, reopen it. We can see if I reopen it, obviously everything is back to default. Pressing the L key will now load everything back in, and you can see we have a functioning save system. So we're using the same code here to persist the data between opening of the widget and closing it. But then immediately we can also use it to function as the actual save system for our save games. So those two things immediately integrate because they're essentially the same thing. It's just one of them remembers it just in memory in an object, and the other one has to remember it by also writing it to disk. So next time, let's take a look at actually making this skill widget zoomable and pannable, because right now it's still static and we've got things that we can barely even click on and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, next time we're going to make this actually navigable, and then we'll have an entirely working skill tree. Now, if you want a code for this, as always, link down below in the description. YouTube members and Patreons can download project files on a per episode basis or for the entire course. Just a single month of subscription to either YouTube members or Patreon gets you access to every project that I've ever uploaded for the month that you're subscribed for. It does also help me out, supporting me making these longer form, more in-depth courses a lot. And a very big thank you to all my Patreons. You can see them on screen right now. If you want to help support the channel or get any of the project files in any of my tutorials, there's a link down below to the Patreon page to support me, or alternatively as a YouTube member. My Cave student tier supporters, Oiku, Earl, Monseville Urno, and my Cave Digger tier supporters, Mauricio Farias.